Well now, if you're sitting comfortably, let me take you on a little journey, not across the country, but across time. You see, time, she's a tricky old thing. Slips right through your fingers like river water. One moment you're a young fella running barefoot through the fields, and the next you're sitting in a creaky old rocking chair on a porch, staring at the same stars you did when you were a boy. Only now they seem a bit quieter. I've been pondering time travel near all my life. Not from books or movies, but from sitting, thinking, watching. You live long enough and you start to wonder, what is time really? Is it a straight line marching forward like a soldier? Or is it a loop twisting back on itself like a snake biting its own tail? Some folks say time travel is all science and numbers, wormholes and tachyons. Me, I think it's more about moments, the kind that stick to your soul long after the clocks ticked past them. So pour yourself a cup of coffee or maybe something stronger if that's your style, and settle in. I got stories to tell. Not just about machines and paradoxes, but about life, about choices, regrets, in the little ways we already do travel through time, even if we don't realize it. Now, there used to be this old clock shop down on Elm Street, run by a fella named Henry. Henry was one of those quiet types, always smelling faintly of cedar and oil. His shop was filled with time. I mean that literally. Grandfather clocks ticking in every corner, pocket watches hanging from little brass hooks, cuckoos popping out like they had something important to say. I'd go visit Henry just to listen. Not to him, though he did have a fine way of talking, but to the clocks. There was something calming about all that ticking, like 1,000 tiny heartbeats reminding you that time never stops. But it don't rush either, it just moves. Henry used to say, time ain't the enemy, son, it's the teacher. And I believed him, still do. 'Cause time don't take sides, it don't favor the rich or pity the poor, it just is. And the way those clocks all ticked in harmony, that shop felt like the center of the universe sometimes. Now, I remember a day that didn't happen. Sounds odd, don't it? But it's true. It was the summer of '58. I was supposed to meet a girl, Clara, over at the lake. We were going to share a soda pop and maybe sneak a kiss or two if the fishing wasn't too good. But something happened that morning. My daddy's truck broke down, and I had to walk all the way into town to fetch a part. By the time I got back, it was dusk. Clara was gone. And I swear to you, that whole day vanished, like it's slipping between the cracks of reality. I still remember every moment before and after, but that day, it just feels like a hole in my life. Maybe that's a kind of time travel too. Not going forward or back, but missing a step, falling through a gap in the stairs. I've wondered ever since, what would have happened if I'd made it to that lake? Would we have married, had a little house, 2 kids, a dog named Rusty? Or would it have ended like so many young loves do, quick, burning out like a firecracker? Time don't answer questions like that. It just leaves them behind for us to puzzle over. There's a thing folks talk about called the grandfather paradox. Says if you went back in time and stopped your granddad from meeting your grandma, you'd never be born to go back in the first place. But let me tell you about a simpler paradox, the porch swing. Used to sit on one just about every evening, watching the sunset melt into the trees. My boy would climb up next to me, sometimes with a book, sometimes with 100 questions, and I'd swing us back and forth, answering what I could. Then one day I was out there alone. The swing creaked like always, but it felt empty. I realized then I was sitting in a memory, not a place. Not really. That porch swing became a time machine, taking me back to those quiet moments when life felt full. And the more I sat there, the more I felt like I was visiting another life altogether. We don't always need fancy machines at time travel. Sometimes it's just a smell or a sound or a feeling in your bones that pulls you back. I once found an old map tucked in the back of my grandpa's barn, yellowed, brittle, edges curled like the corners of a well-worn smile. But what caught my eye, there were no roads, just rivers, valleys, and dotted lines leading to places with names like Whispering Pines and the Edge of Before. I asked my grandpa where the roads were, and he just chuckled. Said, "Them roads change, boy, rivers don't." Times like that took me years to understand what he meant. Roads, they're the choices we make, ever shifting, ever forking. But rivers, they're the flow of time, carrying us along whether we paddle or not. And dotted on that map were places you couldn't drive to. You had to remember them, had to feel your way there. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see that map. And I wonder, maybe time travel ain't about moving fast or slow. Maybe it's about knowing where you are on the map, even if the roads are gone. I once kept a pair of shoes I wore on the best day of my life, and the worst. They were scuffed up, leather cracking at the sides, laces frayed like old friendships. But I couldn't throw them away. That's because every time I looked at them, I'd see her, Sarah, and that fair we went to in '72. Funnel cakes, Ferris wheels, her hand slipping into mine like it belonged there. That was the day I asked her to marry me, but those same shoes were on my feet the day she passed. And when I sit with M now tucked in a box on the shelf, I can feel both days like they're happening at once. The joy and the sorrow, both alive. Time travel? Maybe. Or maybe memory just don't care about linear time. It folds things together like a quilt stitched from every moment that mattered. You ever have something just slip right through your hands, like trying to catch fog? There was this old pocket watch I once found at a flea market in Abilene. Brass case, Roman numerals, back panel etched with a picture of a tree swing. It was cheap, but I tell you, that little thing had weight to it. Not just in my hand, but in my heart. I carried that watch for years, thinking maybe it was from another time. Felt like it had a story I wasn't part of yet. But one day I walked it, just gone. Left it at a diner, maybe, or it fell from my coat on a windy road. And I still look for it. Not the watch, really, but the story I missed. That chapter I never got to read. You see, sometimes time travel ain't about going somewhere. It's about feeling like you almost did. Found an old photo in the attic last year, black and white, corners curled up like they were trying to escape the frame. In it, I'm standing with my brother knee-high to a grasshopper, holding fishing poles twice our size. Behind us are a granddad's cabin by the lake. I hadn't thought about that place in decades, but when I held that picture, I was back there. Could smell the pine, feel the mud between my toes. Memory's a powerful machine, friend. It don't ask permission. One moment you're here, the next you're 10 years old again, being scolded for tracking dirt into the kitchen. Photos ain't just paper and ink. They're little windows. Look through them right, and you can fall right in. There's a leather journal I kept in my 20s. Pages full of dreams, doodles, poems too bad to read out loud. I cracked it open last winter, and I'll be darned. There was a note to myself, said, "Don't forget who you are, even if you get old." I'd forgotten all about writing that, but there it was, my own handwriting, staring back like a letter from a younger me. I smiled, then I cried a little, Because the truth is, time don't just move us forward. It scatters pieces of us along the way. That journal, it's not just old paper. It's a time capsule, a breadcrumb trail to who I used to be and maybe who I still am. One fall many years ago, I went walking deep into the woods behind my uncle's farm. Trees red and gold, crisp leaves crunching underfoot. Got lost too, just a little, enough to feel it. I sat on a stump, listened to the wind, and I swear to you, it spoke. Not words exactly, just a feeling. Like it remembered me. Like I'd sat in that very spot 100 times before. Though I hadn't, it was the first time I realized maybe time don't just flow forward. Maybe it circles round certain places. Maybe memories cling to land, to trees like moss. And if you're real quiet, you can hear them. That day I didn't find my way back. Not right away. But I wasn't scared, because I wasn't alone. Time was sitting there with me, whispering stories through the branches. Way up in the mountains, past the roads most folks travel, there's an old fire watchtower, or what's left of it. I found it once on a hike when I was chasing clouds in silence. Climbed up the rusted ladder, and at the top, there it was, the whole world stretched out like an old photograph. And for a minute, I felt outside of time. No past, no future, just wind, sky, and the rhythm of my own breath. Time, I think, sometimes hides in places like that. Places people forget. Places where clocks don't tick. When I climbed down, hours had passed, but it didn't feel like that. Felt like I'd borrowed a bit of time that wasn't mine. Maybe I did. Maybe that's what time travel really is. Just finding the still spots where the world holds its breath and lets you be. Had an old harmonica once. My uncle gave it to me when I was 10. Said it had belonged to his father and his before that. It wasn't much to look at, dented, a little rusty on the edges, but when you blew into it, Lord, it sang. I took that harmonica everywhere, played it on porches, under stars, beside fires that crackled like old radio static. And every time I played, I felt connected to something bigger. Like I was reaching through time with every note. Years later, I found it in a drawer, untouched for who knows how long. Put it to my lips, played one slow, soft tune, and I swear I heard my uncle laughing, my granddad humming along. Music's funny like that. It don't obey time, it carries it. One year, I must have been about 30, I forgot my own birthday. No party, no cake, not even a phone call. It was just a Tuesday. But that night, I sat by the radio and heard a song I hadn't heard since high school. It knocked the wind out of me, took me right back to the gymnasium dance, the one where I met Eleanor. She wore a green dress and smelled like oranges. I asked her to dance and stepped on her foot. She laughed. I blushed. And that song played while time stood still. That night on my forgotten birthday, I remembered who I was, who I had been. That's the thing about memory. It don't wait for candles. There's a booth at Rosie's Diner, third from the window. Still there, far as I know. I used to sit there every Friday night, back when I was driving long haul. Cup of coffee, grilled cheese, same waitress who called everybody in. One Friday, I stopped in after 20 years away, sat at that same booth. Nothing had changed. Not the linoleum, not the smell of bacon, not even the waitress, though maybe her hair was a little more silver. She didn't recognize me, but that's all right, because I wasn't there to be remembered. I was there to remember. That booth held a piece of my timeline, sealed tight in ketchup stains and the squeak of vinyl. And sitting there, I felt like I'd stepped sideways through time. Bought a little wind-up robot for my grandson last Christmas. Silly thing, waddled across the table, arms flailing. But he loved it. And as I watched him laugh, I remembered a similar toy from my own childhood. A tin bird with wings that flapped when you turned the key. I'd forgotten all about it. But in that moment, the past came rushing back, not as something gone, but as something living again, passed down through joy. That's time travel too, the kind you hand off like a story or a smile. Every night I turn on the porch light, habit mostly, but sometimes I leave it on longer than I should. Not for burglars or raccoons, for ghosts. You see, the folks I've loved, the ones who've gone on ahead, I like to think maybe they're still wandering, looking for home. And that little light, it's my way of saying, you're always welcome. You can still come back. I know it's just a bulb and a switch, but to me, it's a beacon through time. A signal that says the past ain't lost. It's just waiting to be remembered. And maybe, just maybe, one night I'll see a shadow on the porch, and I'll know time brought him home.